Hello, everyone. Glad you're able to join us. Let's see here. Don't see anybody in chat yet, but I know there were some people waiting. Okay, I see that there's 12 watching. I got to find my chat, though. Let's see where that's at. Let's see. Maybe he'll catch up here with us in just a second, or I'll have to go over to YouTube. But anyway, while we do that, we're going to be talking about there it comes. All right. There's Connie. Good to see you. But for everyone that's joining in for the first time on my channel, thank you. I appreciate you coming. And we're going to be looking at some of the testimony today by the experts in the Murdaugh trial. But it was a pretty eventful day, but it was very interesting as far as some of the topics that were talked about. But before we get into it, I'll let a few more people join in. I'll say hello, and then we'll get started with the show. We got Connie here, got Amy. Good to see you. Pigeon Mac, always. Mitzi Scott, Yvette, Jocelyn, one who sees. Good to see you tonight. And then Betty, glad to see you here. Everyone that's joined us in chat, just always be mindful to be respectful of families, be respectful of each other, and be respectful of our mods. And enjoy your time here. And I'll answer any questions you have about this topic or any topic you have, because this Morning Watch crew is just that. It's a little bit of everybody. Southern Gal, True Crime. I went over and I subscribed to Southern True Crime yesterday. New channel. She just got started. If any of y'all have a chance, go over there and look at her channel. Let's let her get some of the love from everyone so that her channel can grow and she can have an impact. I like some of her videos, absolutely. So most certainly, let's give her some attention. All right, Dwayne's good to see you. Mama Natalie and Melissa Walters. All right. As always, before we get started, we'll do a little bit of an introduction so that if anyone's new to the channel and wants to know anything about me, I'm retired law enforcement, had 20 years of service, started off working in the jail, went on the road, became an investigator. Have all different types of training across law enforcement, from SWAT to becoming a state certified crime scene technician, which I enjoy working crime scenes immensely, and it helped my investigative career. And after I retired, I found the true crime world and decided to become an ambassador for law enforcement. And here I am. My channel, as it grows, which it is absolutely far bigger than I ever thought it would be at this point. I've only been here for a few months, so I'm still learning a lot of things. And as we learn and we have the opportunity to go out and help others, especially these victims that have family members that are co-case, that, we have to try and see if we can't generate leads for law enforcement so that they can go out there and possibly find these offenders. Because in some of these cold cases, the offender's still out there and they're still active. And not only have they destroyed the lives of the family of the cold cases, but they're destroying other people. And so it's very important that we go out there and do that. And so tonight, like I said, we're going to be talking about some of the crime scene stuff. And I was impressed today. The defense brought in an expert on the Murdoch homicides. And for y'all that are, I'm pretty sure everybody is familiar with the Murdoch homicides. But if not, it's where Alex Murdaugh is accused of killing his son, Paul, and also his wife, Maggie, on June the 7th, 2021. His I think it was his grandfather started a law firm and since the early 1900s, and he's the third generation, I believe, at that law firm, and he absolutely destroyed it with this situation, and it's just a sad story of corruption. and how many lives this individual touched and destroyed in other cases, civil wise. And so we'll have to look at those at some point, and those poor families that he stole money from. But just because he has those indictments doesn't mean he's even guilty of them yet. But and you know, being a scam artist and being a con man doesn't mean you're a murderer. But everything is stacking up. The prosecution believes he is, and they believe they have the evidence showing it. But they had a good and they have a good reason to suspect him for the fact that this individual says that he was at home taking a nap, and everyone can go and watch the video that his son, who was a victim of the homicide, had made just minutes prior to his death, and that has his father's voice on it. So his father lied, and in the law enforcement, when someone lies, generally there's a purpose and there's a reason about it. It's human nature. You know, we pretty much do everything with a purpose. Um, our interactions, we constantly interview people every day. We ask people, how you doing? And we get answers. And when people mislead us, we start to doubt their credibility. And that's the thing that has brought us to this point of, do we trust Murdoch? And like one of the witnesses that was a friend of Murdoch today that testified that he does not know this man. He said he's worked with him for 30 years, but he does not know this individual. And that sits before him today. And I can understand that. But this expert here, Kenneth Xerxes, I may butcher his name, but is absolutely amazing how he's qualified. And I admire the man. Now, they hamstringed him a little bit today with the defense kind of set him up for failure, but is something that this man has very rarely seen. But he handled himself well, and he is absolutely probably one of the most qualified crime scene individuals I've had the pleasure of watching. He's been qualified in hundreds of cases, and he has the mannerisms, and he came from the old school of prior to all this computer and everything of how we process crime scenes now. And I experienced not as much as him. He started about 10, 12 years before I did. He was in the 70s and I started in the 80s. And but absolutely brilliant, and it's I was impressed with how he was able to present some of the information, and I will get to in a little bit of when it turned around and the prosecution asked him a very important question. It's no fault of this individual. It's what the defense had provided him. They didn't provide him all the information. He didn't. Now, of course, he didn't ask for all the information either. So he played a part in it. But anytime that you go up there and you have opposing sides of attorneys, there's always going to be somebody that's going to attack you. If you got two attorneys in a room, one of them's going to attack you. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But he brought up a lot of key things that SLED failed to do, and that he would do, and I expected a lot of what he said today, and I expected more, but he didn't hammer them and didn't come down real hard on them. But he was critical. Some of the notes I made was that everything from when the officer that walked into the feed room and contaminated and possibly um, uh, stepped on some of the evidence, and we don't know exactly because some of the shoe prints coming out of the room are law enforcement shoe prints of where he walked in the room, didn't have any booties on. And for individuals that don't know what booties are, they're little on slip-on cloths um, um, that will keep you contaminating a scene or being contaminated from a scene. They're just very similar to the Tyvek painter suit that you can get. And I don't know if that's one over there. Let me go see if that is. Absolutely. I have a booty right here. So I'll go off string. It don't matter. I'll run around the room. But these little booties, they just go on your shoes. They're almost like a little hat. And I wore these in the processing some of the stuff for Chris that we created some content with. And I've luminoled not these, but another set so that you can see that whenever I walk through a contaminated scene that has synthetic blood in it and I luminol it, it lights up like a Christmas tree. And if I didn't have the booties on, it would be my shoes. And Southern Gal, you're quite welcome. And it's a great responsibility, just for a moment, for Southern Gal. I want you to remember that it's a great responsibility of when you go out there and create content. Always strive to be as truthful and honest as you can. Work hard, and people appreciate that. They just want honesty, and that's all they want. They want straight shooters, and I appreciate you taking this step forward, and I wish you the best. And if I can never do anything for you, let me know. Let's see here. We'll get to some questions before we get too far behind here, if I have any. Oh, man. Let's see here. Betty says, thank you for working cold cases. And speaking on cold cases, I'm about to, finally, I got a window of opportunity. As soon as I speak, of course, the weatherman will change. But it looks like I will be going on the road most of next week. I've got a lot to do up in Indiana and then in Iowa. And so everything looks like and everything's set and we're ready to move forward, and had some great news about Texas also that, but now next week while I'm on the road, I've decided I'll take my camera, and while I'm on the road, I'll try to get almost nightly because Mrs. Steve won't be with me. And so I'll have to be able to talk to someone. And so why can't I talk to y'all? And so I look forward to that. Got a lot of mileage to put on next week, but I look forward to it. All right. Let's see what else. But this expert, as he was talking about the crime scene, and it started off with the booties and that's protocol, and that officers had contaminated the scene. And one of the most surprising things I've realized about the crime scene, I didn't know that the sled didn't secure the clothing of Paul, and that wasn't processed in case there was some type of struggle that possibly the offender may have shed some type of DNA profile. And they didn't process the clothing, and they covered him with a sheet on both of them, and they didn't secure those sheets, and they didn't secure Maggie's clothing. Once again, a lot of times in these close quarters battles and survival, there's a lot of DNA that can be shed and transferred, and but he was very, critical of that, and I can understand that. We only get one shot at securing evidence because once it gets out of your sight and it gets contaminated or destroyed, that's what happens. If it can get contaminated and destroyed, it gets contaminated and destroyed. And let's see here. Let's see here. It says, Mr. Steve, it's an odd thing, but feels to me like the more defense goes on, the more I'm losing any qualms I may have had about defendant's guilt. Feels like in various chats and YouTube panels, your thoughts. Yes, it's a hard up. Like I said, we're talking about a man that has destroyed so many lives and has destroyed a community and stands and did things that is unimaginable to his friends. And so it's an easy jump that this type of individual would also be responsible for the homicides of his son and his wife. And is that the case? We'll find out in a few days. But um, the prosecution, if the prosecution had brought on the case in the way and the experts that the defense has, it wouldn't even be a close call, I don't think. I think that Alex, absolutely without a doubt, would be found guilty. I'm kind of stuck on hung jury right now. Sadly, I'm stuck on hung jury because I've still got to see what they're going to do about his memory, and if they're going to bring in someone about his memory, or if he takes the stand and tries to explain why he was mistaken about taking a nap and stopped in to say and check on him before he left. Is that possible? And maybe what he has to do. Don't know. But we know that he called her on the phone and there was no answer on the phone. But what would be his excuse? We don't know. I have no idea. But Chris and I are working on something that I was watching his show earlier tonight, and something occurred to me. And Chris and I are extremely excited. I've been testing some controls for the last 2 hours, and it's very eye-opening. I was excited about that discovery, and Chris is excited about it, and we'll see what we can do with it. And hopefully he'll have some videos on it tomorrow. I just processed the videos tonight, and I'll be sending to him. And it's something I hadn't thought of. But watching his show, and it's bothered me since day one, how that phone could get where it got at the time and not have certain things. And I think we figured it out. But anyway, with this expert here, I hate jumping back and forth, but it's all tied into the Murdaughs. But that sled didn't appear as they were processing the crime scene and was moving about the crime scene, that their course of action well defined. And and when it's not well defined, it can get cluttered up. And when it gets cluttered up, and the presentation of the doubt that can be raised in a juror's mind, that when an expert comes in, such as this individual, and describes to those jurors that this isn't the way and isn't the protocols and isn't the way that it should be processed, it makes jurors start losing confidence in law enforcement. And that can have a big effect on, like Ann just said, about the guilt, and that the defense is facing an uphill battle, and they are. And that shouldn't be the case. You always should assume that the guilty is innocent, and the state bears that great burden of proving the guilt. And every time the defense makes gains, and they made great gains with this guy today, all the way up to the point that it came to the attention of the jury that the defense didn't give him all the information. As soon as I heard that, I said, man, why would they do that? Because he most certainly had enough ammunition to say that Sled had taken numerous missteps and on several things and didn't follow protocol. And they should be held to a high standard. All crime scene and law enforcement should be held to a high standard. I'm absolutely certain of that. And I took it at great and to put great importance upon that if I was going to send a man away for life or possibly facing death, that I want to make sure it's him. And it was just as much of my job to prove someone was innocent as it was guilty. Because if I can look at some type of evidence and I see an individual and it says this man is impossible to commit that crime, then I don't have to look at him anymore. We're one less of all the population of the United States. Didn't do it. So now I've just got to go to the others. But but he did highlight a bunch of stuff that the sled didn't do, and they went into some of the photography and not, uh, you know, as the I think her name was Worley. She also admitted that they didn't follow protocols, and he was gentle on law enforcement. He was far less harsh on them than I thought he was going to be, and he put it off that maybe they weren't properly trained. And I have to give him credit for that because I hadn't thought of that. What if they hadn't obtained all the training of what this individual has over 40 years, or what I did over 20 years, because we went from old school to new school, and we learned certain techniques that, uh, you know, uh, that I'm sure that the younger CSIs, they overtrained us. They had no idea. We didn't know back then what CSI was. Well, we were crime scene investigators. We just hadn't come up with a CSI part of it. And but and we had decided that the standards had to be higher because there were so many cases being lost due to that destruction of evidence and things, and um, these um, these people uh, that started and understood what the mistakes were and started these classes and these training programs, absolutely brilliant. And it brought along a new generation of law enforcement. And I can't imagine what the next generation is going to be like with all the technologies they have. It's absolutely amazing. And then we have this other expert, and absolutely, he's more of a, um, you know, talking about the phones and things, and that's what one of the things about some of the phone stuff of what was happening, being in portrait mode, landscape mode, being activated, um, backlight on, backlight off. And it got me to thinking, how could Maggie's phone get to the side of the road? And we're only talking about those 59 steps. And it's about a half a mile from there. And, and it activates while uh, Alex is uh, away. Her phone changes and is moved. And how could that occur? And so that this expert here put me along a path of trying to figure that out. And I think we figured it out, but we'll see. And I'm excited for Chris able to put that together, and so that it'll make more sense to you. All right, let's see what else we got going on here. uh, oh, my surgeons wore those. Yeah, yeah, or in a operating room. And absolutely. Amanda Zimmer, 925. Thank you for all you've done so far for this case. Absolutely. I, I, I take all the cases I look at is not so much to be critical on this case, but it is to try to educate people about how crime scenes and law enforcement looks at them. And so that in the future cases, because all crime scenes are identical as far as way law enforcement should process them, and the processes that are out there. There's not a lot of new stuff coming in. And so you start at ground zero and you first arrive on the scene, you secure it. There's just steps that law enforcement are trained to do. And we follow those steps to minimize the destruction of evidence. And the better educated law enforcement and better educated the public at large is, then you'll be prepared that if you go on jury duty, you'll understand the importance of how the evidence is, or if you come upon a crime scene and how important it is to preserve that evidence. Yeah, let's see here. Let's see here. Yeah, law enforcement body cam that night was incredible when that one young officer backed into the feed room in order to assist with placing the sheet over the victim. Everyone doing odd stuff, absolutely. Um, and especially at night. And I know that it's Monday morning quarterbacking. Once again, it's easy for me to say out here and state this, but it's also that these law enforcement officers, a lot of them had the same training as I, and that you understand that in low light conditions, it's extremely important on all crime scenes that we have a command post set up and we secure that crime scene. We put officers at certain points and no one goes in until we establish corridors and passages that if we're going to get from point A to point B, that we walk the one trail that will interfere or possibly not cross contaminate anything. We stay on that path both ways and we don't go off that path and other than 90 degrees off to a point that we're having to process stuff. And those procedures weren't followed on this. And the officer that stepped into the room, me and him were probably been, uh, if he was on my crime scene team, he would be off my crime scene team in about right before he made the second step into the room. Somewhere around the first step, he would uh, um, found the wrath. um, a question here. One is, if Alex is found not guilty, will he get a bond? I'm sure he'll be eligible for a bond, but will they bond him, or will they believe he is a flight risk? Don't know. And Grace has a question here. We know he's guilty of the money laundering, et cetera, part, but did he pull the trigger? And um, it does appear that he will be found. But once again, we have those indictments. We don't have those trials. Um, and but it's I have questions about did he pull. Now I've demonstrated that it's easy to be able to uh, commit this crime by one person in about 30 seconds. Was he that efficient and effective as a committing homicides? It's possible. I'm a little bit older than Alex. I think I'm about 4 years older than he is, and I was able to do it and transition from firing two shots into the makeup of Paul, the mannequins, and transfer and transition into the shooting positions 1, 2, 3, and 4 that I established due to the shell casings. And like I said, I think I did it in like 37 or 30 something seconds. Um, and or somewhere around there. I can't even remember now because but the could he have done it? And could I have done it a little bit faster? Yes, but whenever I'm dealing with firearms, I try to be as safe and responsible with them and try to demonstrate. But I've been around firearms my whole life, and I have a certain degree of abilities with them. And Jeanette says, "Great, you're teasing us now." Um, we're still making sure that everything because Chris is working on the timeline right now. And the timeline is everything that we went through. It was absolutely scary of everything, all the pieces fitting together. So the timeline fits. But yes, it's not so much that we're teasing. We just want to make sure that we're not reading information in from a biased standpoint. And it doesn't appear so at this point. Um, but like I said, the idea only came to me today, and so we have to see if it's actual. I hope he does take the stand. He would dig his own hole. I believe you are correct. Triple S says, "What didn't the defense give their own expert?" A lot of the reports, the officer that we heard testify early in the case for the prosecution that saw and discovered the footprints in that separate shed, the hangar crossways from where the homicides occurred, of where those sandal footprints in the sandy um, area of that barn, um, where those footprints were discovered. When they asked the expert today, did he know of her and who it was, and he said no. And he explained that he did not get all of the reports and did not have all the data and all the information. He was only talking about the information and the reports, which was limited, that the defense gave him. And a lot of issues can be raised with that because he gave a negative review of the processes used by SLED and what they and how they handled the crime scene. It'd be like, okay, we have 2 plus X equals 40. Well, we understand what 2 is, but we can't say that just the other 2 parts that we don't know were bad. And and you can't be critical if you don't know all the facts and come up with an answer and a sum, which he did. He came up with a summation that they failed in a lot of areas, and they did. But it would have been more powerful if the defense says, this is everything we've got. Look through it and see where they messed up. But when you cherry pick, it's always not a good um, picture. That you just cherry picking certain information to make people look bad, and who can't be made to look bad if you cherry pick certain things about them. You take any individual that you want to and only highlight their bad points, then you can paint them anything you want them to be. Lord Doon, does Murdoch crying and wiping his face appear genuine or orchestrated? I am not a good judge of that. As far as being saying that certain people should behave this way or that. I've seen some hard men cry, and I've seen some weak individuals absolutely do heroic things. And this may be, I think law enforcement has a boatload more evidence they can bring into the court. I think most state prosecutors make sure about who and what they're charging. And I agree. They should and they would. Um, but they seem to have a boatload of financial. Don't have a lot as far as the DNA, and because it's so hard to prosecute people for crime scenes when everyone at the crime scene has reason to have their DNA there, and it's a hard, tough case. So the DNA is not part of it. Um, Mr. Steve, is there a certain set of crime scene investigation tools and methods all law enforcement are supposed to follow? Does the size of the department make a difference as far as training seems to differ? Absolutely. Um, and like I said, some of the training I'm sure is not, it took me almost 2 years um, because, like I said, when we first started the state certification program for law enforcement officers here in Georgia, and there's a lot of different types of training and credits and standards that you can achieve. But the CSI, the crime scene part of it, um, took me almost 2 years, and I was very fortunate that my department had that much confidence in allowing me to go and basically spend, um, uh, you know, almost 1 or 2 weeks out of a month in Middle Georgia, down at Forsyth at the training academy for the state of Georgia. And a lot of departments can't just throw an individual away and say that it's more important for you to get this training than you to do your job here. We'll have people cover for you. And so small departments won't have that capability. But there is certain standards absolutely that processing crime scenes that should be met. Absolutely. Let's see here. Mr. T, how is it handled within the department when a crime scene tech mishandles or compromises evidence, whether purely by accident or just sloppy work? Um, well, accidents happen. Evidence gets destroyed. And as the expert, as he spoke, that we start working you start processing the crime scene from when you're briefed by the uh, initial responding officer that he has secured the scene and he has put the boundaries out, whereas the evidence can't be destroyed. And then we start evaluating everything by what we can see. And we start developing a plan of how we're going to move into a crime scene. And um, can we identify where the offender was during certain parts and certain acts? And and then that kind of builds corridors of how you approach each section of the crime scene. And sometimes you'll see something that you won't get, but there's a lot of evidence between you and that piece of evidence that you really are interested in. And you still have to make sure that you gather as much and make as few mistakes as possible. And, but things do get, I've seen people lose their balance and fall into blood spatter. I've seen people try to step over things, twist their ankle, and fall into the crime scene by accident. And all you do is just shake your head and say, "Okay, we have, we reconstruct it the best I can. It comes out in court. Comes out in court." And because, like I said, we're humans, and things happen. Um, you you're trying to uh, step through all this blood spatter, and sometimes it's extremely difficult, and you can slip and fall. I was very fortunate I didn't slip and fall in some of those situations, but I saw some people that's you just shake your head at. And but now if it's sloppy work, um, their career won't be on the crime scene. It's fine to have an accident, and you can explain that way. But if you're doing sloppy work, there's no excuse for being sloppy. Um, you got standards to go by, and if you can't meet those standards, at least with working with my 5 or 6 man team that I had some absolutely brilliant, hardworking individuals, dedicated, that worked hard, and none of them were sloppy. Dolly and Gabriel. Good evening, everyone. What do you think about the lawyer pointing the bang bang at the other lawyers and just laughed about it? Man, I can't believe he got off with it. And I don't know how long it will be. I don't know if the judge at some point may do some type of sanctions, because not only that, we had the other one that was doing the Twitter. So I don't know what the final say would be on that. Um, Pigeon Mac, interesting reference taped off path to avoid contaminating scene. So this was not done not that I know of. When I saw some of the chest cam, they're just milling around, walking, crossing, standing there, going in circles. And doesn't mean that prior to that, that they didn't do a grid search or a line search, spirals. I mean, there's so many different types of searches that they could have done. I don't know that they did or didn't, and make that safe area. Um, but it doesn't appear so. Do you think any of the law enforcement oddities could have been occurred due to Murdoch's career in law enforcement was just thrown off balance? I think they, as quick as they went to bringing in the sled, I think there were possibly some type of intimidation, that they were fearful that it would have the appearance that if he wasn't prosecuted and the crime scene wasn't handled professionally, that it would be come back on them, and they took the appropriate steps early on, and um, I'm glad that they did because it cleared them of certain things. But now that the crime scene wasn't um, processed as diligently as it should have, that we have some issues. All right, let's go to the next. That's funny there. In jury voir dire, if they attack, have you attended Mr. and Mrs. Steve's University of Criminology? And potential juror says yes, they'll move to strike him. You're too well informed. Um, I've been voir dire as for jury panels many, many times. And I've never been selected to be on a jury, mostly due to my law enforcement. Well, totally due to my law enforcement career. Um, we're law enforcement officers, real good jurors. As far as shooting at Maggie, as um, the I would have to say no to this for the fact that I looked at when I recreated the crime scene um, from where the shots and the ejection of the shells and the orientations of the firearm. It wouldn't have allowed the manipulation of turning that corner and being able to do that. I don't believe. I haven't tried that yet, and I may try it. I just don't have an ATV, but I don't believe that you would have been able to recreate it, recreate the shell casing string, whereas it would meet the criteria for the orientation of the gun and for the shells to be ejected the distances they were. I don't believe that would work out. It's possible. I hadn't tried it, but I may have to try that. Um, So in other, the defense crafted a false report from their expert. Is that no different from uh, subverting? I don't know what that word's supposed to be. Is um, but it does seem highly unethical at a minimum. Um, Defenses do what defenses do. They hire experts, and I wish they had given him all the information, and I wish he had requested all the information, because it did take a man that's extremely educated, extremely professional, and knows the world of CSI inside and out, and put him in bad light. And I didn't like that, but he played a part in it because he set in his mind for the opinions that he wanted to give, and when you do that, that you or play a part of that, then you do bear some of the responsibility of it. And but I wish he hadn't have done that. She says I'm a bad judge of character, but I can tell when someone's shedding tears, um, and that was sus. All right, I wouldn't go into law enforcement now for even with a 20,000 signing bonus. Law enforcement, there it's strange now. Yeah, let's see what we got going down through. And this is one of the things that happens when Ann says that Xerxes was pretty transparently just nitpicking for hire. Yes. And law enforcement did and didn't do. I don't think jury would be overly impacted by his testimony. And that happens a lot of times when you have opposing experts. The jurors say, okay, he's an expert. He's on this end of the spectrum. Defense experts on this end of the spectrum. And it gets to that, whereas people just write it off and say that means nothing. Um, what do you think about two witnesses that had mistakes? Now I know that he said that he made a mistake, and mistakes happen. You misspeak. I misspeak all the time, and uh, but and people make errors, and when you make an error, um, of course, the opposing attorney is going to say, "See, you know, he tells you he makes mistakes, but everybody makes mistakes, and it's just you have to be careful, be as well informed as you can." Um, I think harpooning is used to getting away with a lot of sly little tricks and lower profile cases where the state isn't coming on so strong. In this case, he's getting caught red-handed, as they say. And I'm sure at some point in Harpoonian's career, he was absolutely great at his game. The other two attorneys, or at least two of the defense attorneys, maybe three of them, I'm far more impressed with than uh, Harpoonian. Um, and I don't know if it's just because I'm biased of the way that he does certain things, and maybe pointing the gun at the defense or the prosecution um, increased my bias against him, and which is absolutely something that you shouldn't do, and he did. And so um, I will always have probably a higher degree of bias against Harpoonian from this point on. Um, and will that have the same impact on the jurors? It could. Okay, I see what you're saying now, but I missed one of the letters earlier. I was, and I don't know if I've ever heard that term suborning uh, perjury. I don't think I've ever heard that term. Learn something every day, and I don't think that is something that's lawful. I mean, uh, I don't think it's something uh, that if you do that, that most certainly there should be certain sanctions um, against you. But I appreciate that. I'm gonna have to look that term up, and uh, I think that's the first time I've ever seen that term. See, I'm almost 60 years old, and I've learned something tonight. All right. If Maggie tried to run, do you think Alex could have struck her with an ATV, causing a mark on the back of her leg? Like I said, I think that the ATV may have occurred earlier about something else, um, and I don't know if the ATV played a part in the actual assault. Um, I think it may have played a part after the crime, and but I don't know how much during the crime, other than it more than likely is what transported the firearms to the crime scene, and that and it's possible that's how um, Paul, uh, Alex, and Maggie may have gotten to the crime scene, and just don't know. Lawyers have their own language sometimes, absolutely, and now lawyers and law enforcement don't hang around a lot together. Um, Even DAs and law enforcement, we really don't hang around attorneys and prosecutors. You think that we would, but we don't, or at least we didn't here in Georgia. That may be different in other cities. Eleanor Roosevelt said, "Every single person you meet has something to teach, even if it is just how not to behave." That is absolutely brilliant. Um, Understood. I imagine being a tech is very high stress. I, it can be, because there is a certain burden upon you that makes sure that you collect all the evidence, you preserve all the evidence, you document all the evidence, and you're able to present it to a, a group of individuals to see that justice is done. And you know, I could see where it would be on certain individuals, but um, not really I was never really that. Now, this term I understand, subordination. Okay, um, uh, I understand that term, and but I didn't see the that he said. That was a different spelling. But no, I understand this term. I just hadn't seen the suborning. I'd never seen that. I couldn't figure that out. Subordination. And I don't know if this is a proper, but I had seen subordination, of course, but I hadn't seen the spelling that he did. Okay, so now I understand. Yeah, I couldn't figure out what he was trying to say there. Okay, thank you, Ann. I understand that now. Um, Tyra, hi everyone. I'm new to this channel. Glad you're here. Um, absolutely appreciate you being here and supporting the channel. And if you have any questions, absolutely ask them, and we'll try to get it answered to the best of our ability, as truthfully as we can. Only law enforcement hangs out with lawyers or law enforcement and want to go to law school. In my career, I worked with one officer that went to law school, and uh, absolutely enjoyed working with him. And uh, whenever we went to trial, and he became a prosecutor originally, and then went out on his own on the defense. Happens all the time, but he was. Um, I had some fond memories working with him. Mr. C, I learned something every time I watched True Crime Web. Excellent info from you and your knowledgeable community. Yes, um, like I said, I learn something all the time too, and I just hadn't seen suborning before. Um, Vicky Fox, where do you think Maggie was running from? Just 32 and a half feet apart. I feel like uh, Alex snuck up on Paul and Maggie heard shots and came running. Very possible. And that would fit the scenario of that she arrived, that whatever happened, and this is what I believe the sequence of events was that um, the offender confronted Paul in the feed room. Shot number one didn't have the effect that they thought. The offender either went to the ground inside the feed room and or tripped over the threshold, landed on the ground outside the door. Um, Paul comes through. The offender fires a second shot, striking the shoulder, neck area, and of course creating that catastrophic gunshot wound that created all the uh, human um, tissue to be in that huge blood pattern that would have been, and the blood spatter, and would be covered with it. And at that point, I think mm, the offender was probably getting up, and Maggie was still running towards the gunshots. And because after the first gunshot that didn't um, put Paul down, he may have been screaming or yelling at the offender or for his mother. And of course, when you yell at individuals and you're hurt, it's a different tone. And human nature is you can understand those tones. And I can imagine that the mother of a child that was screaming would be coming to assist. And I think by that time, the second offender or the second weapon was obtained, and it could be either way. And when Maggie was there, that's where that first impact into the gravel occurred. That went through her thigh probably, and then the evasion of her leaving the crime scene from position 1 to position 2 to whatever happened at position 3 and 4, where the gunshot went into the bird cage. And that's just a short summary of how I think it occurred. But I do believe that she was coming to his aid and at some point realized what was happening and did try to um, either get help or get away. And I hope Maggie got that mark on her leg afterwards. Just too sad to think about her being run down and then gunned down. Yes, it's absolutely um, the fear and during those final moments, it's nothing that anyone would like to see. Tyra, I like your reenactment, Steve. You go all out. Your wife is so funny too. She's hilarious. Uh, her dry sense of humor is absolutely scary. Her dry humor at some of the most uh, critical times and times of danger of what she will say um, uh, whenever we're traveling. Not really so much danger, but um, some of the things that have occurred and some of the situations in our 33 years of being together of what she would say. Absolutely hilarious, and we'll go over those one of these days. Yes, I can imagine him. Yes, absolutely that or whoever the offender is. And I do believe that he knew who the offender is. And was it Alex? It's most certainly a possibility. The prosecution says it is. And as I demonstrated that a an individual could, one individual could do it in less than somewhere around 30 seconds. And or two offenders could do it also within 30 seconds. Um, Madison Stevens, Mr. Steve, you're the best. Looking forward to your new find with Chris. I do believe that in my mind it answers everything, but that doesn't mean it's it's right because I always question, and that's what happens with crime scene investigators. You are given a certain amount of information, and these are the facts that you're given, and you have to make sense of it, and you argue those facts, and you may have four different people with the same information coming up with four different scenarios, and you have to figure out which one makes most sense. And the phone being found and changing orientation when Alex is making a phone call half a mile away did not make any sense. Does now, but didn't before. And but I'm still doubting, and we have to, like I said, Chris is running through some of the timeline stuff and building that, and I look forward to when we mesh everything together because I haven't meshed all my stuff together yet. But I hope it makes sense. And if it doesn't make sense, anytime you watch any of my scenarios, absolutely question them because if it doesn't make sense to you, I want to know why, and because it makes the case stronger. That I've been out there where I was dead set that this is what happened, and someone else come up with a far better idea, and I look at it and say, "Yeah, you're right," and because not always are you absolutely correct. Um, you may be in the ballpark, but doesn't mean you're hitting the home run. Yeah, let's see what we got here. Um, I had seen where it was referenced that Netflix has this, and I did not know that. Um, even Baby Steve, my daughter calls herself Baby Steve now, is told me that it was out there, and I saw it referenced. I just hadn't looked at it. Yeah, she comments on your gadget purchases. I love her style. I had to go get a set of shelves today to get all my gadgets on because I run out of room trying to keep up inventory. And Ann says that if I were on the jury trying to make some sense of why he did this, I'd be focused on him having been confronted with his fraud that morning at his office. And that could be the straw that broke the camel's back. Absolutely. That everything was going to be exposed. And is that why he did it? Very possible. Thank you for all you did with this trial and putting your skills for good reasons on a YouTube streams channel. Truly, thank you, Paige. Absolutely, like I said, I I try to make reasonable, uh, bring all the facts together to have some type of reasonable explanation, and and typically that's what it is. It's most reasonable, simple stuff. It's not as complicated or complex as some people try to build cases. Sometimes it is complex, but typically it's just something very, very simple. And Paula Daniels, thank you for Steve for making these late night chats. I enjoy them, and I figured that there was a. Uh, I'm a night person. I'm a night owl. I work the graveyard shift, morning watch. I absolutely love, and there's a lot of good people out there, and I wanted to make sure that we could share some and spend some time together. Um, yes, I was talking to Chris about that. Alex had a flashlight, and he said, and we were discussing that, and um, it is interesting that he has a flashlight. And I absolutely agree. They still have not proved a clear cut case on several fronts, just circumstantial, vague crime scene survey. Well put. Well put. Uh, Steve, can you reiterate the phone orientation change time frame being when Alex was driving? This was huge today. And when you see the test, it will make sense to you. I now you have because that was one of the things that was I couldn't figure out. I think I figured it out, and that's what we're working on. But exactly because that was one of the key things. How could that happen? And love to create. Excellent name. Excellent name. Yes, thank you. I have restless leg syndrome and literally can never sleep at night. Sometimes my fingers hit the Google machine and it puts things on and off too quick. Um, I hope that you uh, get well soon. I don't know what all they can do for that, but hopefully they can. Oh, excellent. Just ordered a TC True Crime Web logo white trans tote bag. Excellent. Thank you. Mrs. Steve has one for our beach um, that we she carries to the beach with us. And but anyway, we're getting there. Been here a while, and yeah, got a little bit of cough tonight for whatever reason. I don't know if it's here. The weather in Georgia is absolutely beautiful as far as temperature, but we got stuff blooming now that as the spring comes on, we will. Uh, Mrs. Steve has a lot of allergies. Not so much for me, but When I was young and working in hay fields, you didn't have allergies. Hay will clear. hay hay cures all allergies. If you stacking hay in a barn, that clears up your all your sinuses. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Um, Southern Gal says, "Thank you for your straightforward, honest, drama-free info." Absolutely, it's been an honor to work with people and serve some communities, and I enjoy it. Hope your cough clears up. Yeah, it's um, actually I don't know. It just started probably sometime today with transition of the temps, and so I'm sure it's just something that's are starting to bloom. But let's see here. But yeah, we've been here a little bit over an hour. If y'all got anything else, y'all want to spend some more time together, just let me know. We'll talk about anything about this case or any case. And like I said, I'm going to be going on the road. Um, oh, goodness. I guess uh, I'm going to try leave Sunday morning, but I'm going to try to have at least um, 3 or 4 shows on the road next week. Like I said, I got a busy week. I got a lot of miles to go, uh, and look forward to that. Look forward to it. But anyway, I appreciate everybody being here tonight, and we'll get together. See, tomorrow night, or no, it's tonight because it's already in the morning. Um, I guess. Thanks, Mister. Say I look forward to your night streams, road streams upcoming. Yeah, I've never done that much of the roads on my other times out. I think Mrs. Steve and I, when we did Larry Crumb the first time, we was on the road, and that's the only one I've ever done on the road. But uh, the channel as it grows, I realize that I need to be out there and letting people know where we're going, what's happening, and because people, um, this community allows me to do that, and I should share certain things as we go out on the road. And I work for my community. I work for you, and y'all support by watching the videos. Um, Everything you do by buying merchandise or contributing absolutely allows me to do this. And for my members, I couldn't do what I do. I wish I was independently wealthy enough to do it, but I'm not. And but we will get it done. What made you decide to pursue crime scene analysis and forensic? I'm a second generation law enforcement, and just went with it, and um, got into the investigative part. Always, you know, when I was young, um, back when people read books, and I would absolutely go on these binges, and it was nothing for me to read 2 or 3, 4 books a week, and always was fascinated by mysteries and true crime, even back then, of what the authors did about some of the homicides and serial offenders that were big in the 60s as it became more prevalent and the news media was covering them. What do you think about Sarah Boone? I know I've heard that name. Let me go look. Yes, I knew I heard that name. Uh, yeah. Um, yeah, there's a, um, you always heard about Florida man. Now we have Florida woman. And it's absolutely amazing what people will do to another human. Just, the absolutely evil that's out there. All right. I sent your Facebook account a phone experiment. Excellent, excellent. I like all different types of controls, and I think Chris was asking if anyone had any type of controls they in testing they wanted us to do what we would do, and absolutely, it will be a Hail Mary if he does take the stand. It's because there's no other way out for him. Um, Attorneys will, uh, he knows the perils of what he will face, and he won't be able to plead the fifth once he takes that stand. Um, and he'll be fair game. I think it's very slim that he will, but if there's no other way and no other out for him, he may do it. Um, yeah, I'll familiarize myself with it, and we'll look at it, um, and uh, and see what we can do with it. Mr. Steve, you had $5 spare of buying synthetic blood and such. Which way would you bet on Alex maybe taking a stand? Five on will or five on won't? Also, anyone's inclinations to chat. Um, I would say no, because it's so high risk. Um, and uh, the state has other, if it wasn't for, and I've said it before and I'll say it again and again, if Paul's video didn't exist, he would not be on trial for this homicide. I do not see it. And that's all they have. And it's just what can they make of it? And is it enough? And that's the only thing that even puts me that there is a possibility that they'll convict him. But without that video, it's just how will that jury take that video, and has the prosecution, and will the prosecution hammer it home enough? I don't know. My great aunt used to give me her old true crime magazines. I started reading those when I was 10 years old. I'm 56 now. I love crime stories. Uh, Man, what was that? There was that small book that came out that had those true crime stories in them. I can't remember what I'm sure it's something simple like true crime, and but or stories of the of true crime or something, and but I can't remember what those little small booklets were. The name of them. I'm sure someone will know that before long, um, or would tell me. But you're absolutely right. Uh, I always loved true crime and always will. All right, now, uh, Tyraya says that he will testify tomorrow or Friday. All right. Yes, secret hoping prosecution says hard to imagine a man killing his wife and child. That's what we thought about Chris Watts and Scott Peterson and Susan Smith. And yes, you're absolutely correct. Um, and there's a special place in certain places for these type of people. And I have absolutely no qualms that I wish they were there now. Charlene Bound. I'm gonna stay away from that statement there, but appreciate your sentiment. It was not the Reader's Digest, but it was something very similar to it, um, and I can't think of what it was. If he doesn't take the stand, can they show video exhibits instead? They would have to be hearings on that, but um, they wouldn't be able to show a video of him making a statement of certain things. Now, some of the interviews, absolutely, but not of the other things. The defense said that they should be done by Friday, but so we'll see. Well, Janet, I'm glad that you came tonight. Helter Skelter. That was a good book. I have it actually still upstairs. Um, if Alex were to take the stand, I pretty much imagine the state will spend days, yeah, going over everything with him. Absolutely. All righty, guys. And I appreciate everybody being here tonight. And I look forward to seeing y'all later today or this morning. But I look forward to seeing y'all later and um, we'll have a show, I think, around 8. And I've got a bunch of work to do tomorrow to get the information to Chris. And I can't wait to see what he does with the information. And but I'll see y'all and probably, I don't know, what time is it now? 1:20. Um, so we got 6 plus 12, about 18 hours. So y'all stay safe out there and see y'all soon. Bye.